And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge. I'm Anthony Irwin, Lakers insider for Lakers Daily, and today on the show we are going to be talking about starters. Yeah, my dream of D'Angelo Russell coming off the bench lasted for all of 0 training camp days, as
Mhm.
JJ Redick went on the Lowe Post to announce months in advance that he has already figured out who his starters are going to be. So, Raj, do you already miss Frank Vogel and Darvin Ham holding on to these things until the second that they had to?
Not really, because they would hold on to things that were already free in the in the airspace, stuff that we kind of already knew. But hopefully this is a trend that JJ will be very transparent with the media. It seems like I haven't been able to listen yet to his full appearance on the Low Post, but yeah, no, don't miss it. I feel like the starters are pretty much known beforehand. If not, it's a starter that should not be usually starting. But other than that, no, I don't miss those.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. We'll talk also about Rob Pelinka's presser, which is going to be Wednesday afternoon. We'll also, all right, I was gonna save it for later in the show, but this Kawhi Leonard story is
Oof.
insane, and it legitimately impacts the Lakers in that it's a division rival. It's one of the teams that they're going to be fighting against to get into the play-in, I think, or the
Mhm.
playoffs, however you're feeling about either franchise. The timeline, like Sabrina asked us to explain the timeline in Slack, and I just said no, like we can't,
Right. Yeah.
because it is such a it's very clear here that somebody has been doing a lot of lying. My guess it's Kawhi Leonard's camp, and it's that they just and they've done this. They did it dating back to San Antonio. They've done it the entirety of his time in LA. They do it with every injury he sustains. Like it's just you know uh untruth after untruth so as to make Kawhi appear healthier than he actually is. And it always turns out that he isn't as healthy as the reports are claiming that he is. And once again, the Clippers and their fans find themselves kind of wondering, well, like, wait, what? Hold on, an encouraging amount of swelling? What even is that?
Uh,
What the hell is that phrase?
before I go, Anthony, what benefit does Kawhi get or his camp get, in your opinion, from I guess messing with the timeline, or making it look like he's ahead of schedule, or giving a timeline that would give fans any kind of hope, right? Because that's kind of what the wording of the injuries were today. They were like, "Don't worry, don't get your caution signs up.
Yeah.
It's encouraging swelling," which was kind of the wording around it. He had another procedure that you didn't know about till today, but he'll be fine. He just can't do any drills yet, but he'll be fine when the time comes. Hopefully. But in your opinion, what does Kawhi, especially after already signing the extension, right? So there's no money incentive. Not that that was, well, I don't know his the actual motivations, but I don't see a benefit for Kawhi camp doing this for or and benefiting the Clippers at all. The Clippers are the one that always have to take the heat every time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's control for the sake of control and controlling the narrative. And there's always going to be value in controlling perception and staying on top of the news and information flow. And I think that's basically like what they're going to consider the advantage here. But you're right, dude. Like you could control it however much you want, right? You didn't watch
Right.
Succession, I'm sure. So
Mhm.
one of the characters was kind of mocking one of the other characters. They were like, gotta control the narrative, gotta control the narrative, gotta control the narrative. And it's like, yes, you do. But also, if you try to manipulate the narrative, eventually it's going to come back to bite you in the ass, right? If you try to falsely, especially if you falsely manipulate the narrative and you try to make it appear something that it literally is not. And with Kawhi, like it has literally been um a narrative that does not align with reality, and that's been consistently the case. And um look, like I as everybody who watches and listens to the show or have done so for a while knows, I worked in PR. And you know my job as a PR consultant back in the day was to control the narrative in a productive manner that allows my client to handle whatever situation is thrown at them. But like my approach, and specifically the company that I worked for's approach
Hmm.
was, you basically, like, your PR is the stuff that you do in between unfortunate events, right? And building up as much goodwill so that when the time
Right.
comes, when you're a public facing person, and you need the benefit of the doubt from if you're a politician, your constituents, whether it's your clients or your customer base, whatever, in that time when you need their support because you screwed up in one way or another, or like, just even if you didn't screw up, if something was beyond your control and it didn't, and it played out unfortunately, you need to have enough in that bank so that you can go to them and say, like, well, look, here's everything that we've done to this point. Here's how we're going to try to make it good, or make things better here moving forward. And then you move forward, and you announce every good thing that you do from there. But like, the problem that Kawhi is having is that, like, he keeps on, and his camp keeps on doing these things retroactively rather than proactively,
Yeah.
right? It's always after the fact that you hear about this thing, and it might be weeks, it might be months. We don't know what the timeline is when he got this procedure. Was it before the Olympics? Was it right after they kicked him off of the Olympic team? Like, all of the whining and griping that you did at the time when you were kicked off the
Right.
Olympic team, like that didn't appear to age very well. And like, that's where yeah, that you're always going to get something from controlling the narrative, but if you do so poorly, it's also going to stick out almost more than if you like the story here isn't just his injury. It's yet another instance in this long
Right.
trend of Kawhi and his camp and the Clippers not being forthright with any of these situations.
That's where I was gonna go with this. So I'm glad you went the PR route where working for the team, because I'm just gonna go into my fan perspective. As a fan, if I'm a Clipper fan, and obviously everyone, when this type of stuff happens, Anthony, you get the everyone bases their tweets around, we hope Kawhi is okay, right? And that's obviously the kind of background around this. But as a Clipper fan, again, I don't watch movies, but this movie has ended the same way for the last like 3-4 years. The only one
Yeah.
where it hasn't is the in the bubble, right, where they blew the 3-1 lead to Denver, and just creating an epic night on Twitter. But other than that, every single time it's been the same thing. Kawhi comes, plays, looks incredible, looks amazing, looks like his MVP, and he's going to have another 15-20 game session this season where he looks like that. But then in the playoffs, something happens, some mysterious injury, and the Clippers are not very forthright. Neither is Kawhi's camp on what actually occurred. We get weird optimism and also weird doomsday tweets that come out, and he's just out, right? In the Sun series, there was weird reporting around it. Maybe if they take it to game 5 or 6, he could have came back, right? Like that kind of stuff continues to come out. As a Clipper
Yeah.
fan, I'd be pretty annoyed that, again, he was supposed to play in the Olympics. You got me excited about that. And then Kawhi is just instantly cut. Kawhi Leonard is cut from the Olympic team. And there's mixed responses on if he's healthy or not, and them upset with Grant Hill and their kind of staff of not allowing him to rehabilitate like they did KD, right? KD was also hurt to start the Olympics, so was able to return.
Hmm.
So yeah, like as a fan, I would be pretty tired of it. And I've seen Clipper fans kind of come out and say, look, I hope he's traded, and I understand that perspective. I think this is a tough movie to go through again. Now you let Paul George walk and your team is built around James Harden. That's a really tough place to like be and a tough sell. So yeah, I just it's very strange. The reporting around it is strange. And Kawhi is just so far away from everybody. It feels like you'll never know. Like you'll never have the actual answer with Kawhi.
Well, this is where I'm going to be a little careful here because I don't cover the Clippers, and I don't have full information here.
Sure.
But given how things have played out and some of what you've heard or what I've heard, behind the scenes here, it would appear that the Clippers picked Kawhi over Paul George. They maxed Kawhi and then didn't want to max Paul George. And some of that has to do with how Paul kind of handles things behind the scenes, guys that he pushes for them to acquire or sign or whatever, and roles. And then you also had that weird set of quotes while he was negotiating a contract, talking about how he didn't want to do the little things. Like that
Right.
would, make me feel even better if I was, the Clippers, in making the decision not to max this guy. Clearly, winning isn't the top priority, right? And so, so they make that call, they make that decision. And I don't think, like, I've actually spoken on this show before about how much work the Clippers do to be like the most informed team around the league about
Mm.
topics and rumors and whispers around the league. I would
Uh-huh.
imagine that also extends into their own locker room, but
Their own
also
players.
I've seen a lot of people go in at Law Murray, right? And somebody I've never spoken to, and we follow each other on Twitter. We've DM'd a couple times. I like the guy to that extent, right? And I've seen people going at him for this stuff, and it's like a reporter can only kind of do and report what the main interested parties are telling him or them.
Sure.
And now you can dig further, especially in this case where like Kawhi and his camp are clearly lying all the time. I wouldn't necessarily take their word at face value. If I were reporting on that situation, but it's also like kind of difficult to call probably the most powerful person in that organization a liar about his body, in your reporting. So you kind of find yourself in a tough spot. And, with all of this, like I like Clippers fans calling for them to trade Kawhi Leonard. I think I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I at this point, I don't even care if I'm selling low. I don't care. Like reset, have a fun kind of low expectations team, get out of the Kawhi business, get out of the Paul George, but you're already out of the Paul George business because that seems like a giant headache as well. And now like try to move forward. And I find
Well,
myself like I know it's a very kind of knee-jerk reaction from fans, and like that's what fans do. But at this point, it's hard to even call it a knee-jerk because it's been freaking years of this. It's
it,
been like the same thing. It's the same freaking movie that you're just stuck watching, like that meme, right? Where your eyes, they're keeping your eyes open,
right.
and you have to watch Kawhi Leonard lie to you about how his body is holding
Well,
up, and it's just like, all right, I guess we'll go on this roller coaster one more time.
well, first shout out Law, one of the only reporters that has been to a G League game and watched, sat there and watched the whole thing and was very knowledgeable about all the players that were there. So was a cool dude to
Law's a
talk.
good dude from
Very,
everything my
very good
experiences with
guy.
him and what I hear about him. He's a good dude.
And knows ball for sure. But the problem, Anthony, like you can't trade Kawhi and let Paul George walk and then walk into a new arena. Like those are
Why
two
not?
things that
I keep hearing this. Why not?
you
Like,
ha-
like why not?
there has to be a sell for that. You can't sell Derek Jones Jr. and whoever they picked this year in the draft. Like that can't be your sell going into a new arena. A new arena has to have some lifeblood into it. Has to have some star power coming in. There's got to be some kind of sell. You don't believe so? I
No,
think so.
I thought that way for a little while, but the more I think about it, they're going to be in that building a while. And like
Okay.
if I'm the Clippers, like, all right, here's how I'll put this. The same old Clippers would do exactly that. They would prioritize ticket sales. They would prioritize headlines heading into this new arena. The same old Clippers would, well, for one thing, they would, they'd be owned by Donald Sterling, so you'd have a whole
Right.
other set of issues as well. But like the same, like that seems like a very same old Clippersy thing to do. Like try to sell people on a core that isn't going to win a championship, a superstar that you can't really say for sure is going to play on any given night. Like, is that really like the culture that you want to like build this building on,
Yeah.
open this building with? In it, if anything, if I were the Clippers, and again, going back to like the whole lesson here being, and like we credited JJ Redick with this transparency, talking about the starting five. I think it'd be like I think it'd be like, if I were a fan and I cared about basketball and I cared about like the long-term health of my team, I'd be a little annoyed that they prioritize ticket sales ahead of what is actually best for all of the interested parties here. Just because they were opening up a brand new arena. I don't give a fuck about like ticket sales. I care about what's going to help my team win basketball games, either in the near future or distant one.
Well, I think that's fair. I think both things can also be true, right? It can be
Totally.
not just for, yeah, it can't just be for ticket sales. It's also like you've been in the Kawhi business for 5 years now, right? It's like you might as well get something for it. You continue to extend them, betting on at least one more healthy playoff run. And maybe that's a really tough bet, but the Clippers keep kind of hoping that they at least get one because Kawhi is so incredible when he plays. It's funny, you brought up the culture thing, and I think my favorite quote from Clippers Media Day, and I'm not sure this is the best time to do this, Anthony, like, attacking your former star while like you're putting out reports that your current one can't play yet. But like Lawrence Frank was asked, and they asked him about Kawhi. He's like, well, Kawhi's going to have a lighter load this season because he doesn't have to guard the other team's best player, which is a funny way to kind of take a little shot at Paul George. So I thought that was funny. Paul George has like the strangest two-way reputation around the league. I think it's hilarious. But Paul George was probably like, look, I was terrible in the Dallas series. I also played in the Dallas series, so like come bring me my money. So I totally get that from their perspective. I think that was smart on both sides to kind of walk away from that. But it's interesting. The Kawhi stuff will never go away, and like it looks like there's another series to that this season.
All right, let's move on to actual Lakers stuff here that directly impacts the team that we are all here to talk about. JJ Redick went on the Zach Lowe podcast, or the Lowe Post with Zach Lowe, and said the following when he was asked the following.
Let's talk about the actual team for a few minutes. Have you settled on a starting five?
Yeah. It'll be the starting five that went 23-10 last year.
D'Lo, Reaves, Rui, LeBron, AD.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So obviously, as somebody who had staked their claim on D'Lo should come off of the bench island, tough spot for your boy. Even though, like, I will say that, like, even while I said that, I said it's something that should do. I don't think I ever said it's something that they will do. I hope not, anyway. But the news here being that, like Lowe and like Redick said, D'Lo, Austin, Rui, LeBron, AD is going to be the starters. Raj, what's your immediate takeaway?
So I don't know if this is the wrong immediate takeaway, but just listening to that, it sounded like, just if you reading like through the words, JJ was like, obviously I'm starting the team that went 23-10 last season, like pretty much in a, not a dig at Darvin Ham, but kind of like, if you're looking at this team, what other starters would I go with?
It would have been funny if he was like, hold on, I have the starters here in my pocket somewhere. 1 second,
Oh man, if he's doing that with Zach Lowe, I can't imagine. This season with JJ is going to be really fun. But no, like I think that's the correct starters to go with. Especially, I was the proponent of Jared Vanderbilt starting at that 3 position, but obviously, I think reports are coming out that he won't be ready to begin, preseason or the season. So I think this is the correct starting lineup. They did go 23-10. This has the highest offensive floor, and the most, I guess, like not the best defensive floor, but your defensive players aren't really available. So I think this is the highest talented starting five you can put out there. This makes sense. And I'm glad he's gone with this and didn't go with the 5th position as up for grabs in training camp, and go, through that whole thing. So this makes sense. It's a good first start, I would say.
I'd be interested how this plays out if Vanderbilt was available. Like, I think this is like further, like another nail in the coffin for the beginning of Jared Vanderbilt's season. Maybe the final nail in the coffin for the beginning of Jared Vanderbilt's season.
Oh, no.
Because look, like Vanderbilt and Rui make roughly the same amount of money. I would say they probably hold the same amount of cachet in the locker room as each other. Like, if Vanderbilt were healthy and Redick was just like writing him off as a potential starter before training camp even starts, I'd be a little pissed, like I'd be a little annoyed if I were Vanderbilt in that situation. But like if I'm not healthy, then I like what do I have to say on that front, right? So
Yeah.
I do kind of think that like fans can probably take that next step and say, okay, well, let's see when Vanderbilt is actually going to be available. But given the players available, this is the right call, I think. Also, for like a rookie head coach,
Yeah.
or a rookie coach, as I keep on pointing, or as people keep correctly pointing out, a rookie coach stepping into a locker room and telling, last year's starting point guard, somebody who is like clearly a top 5 player on this roster, probably even higher.
Mhm.
Hey, I know we're trying to trade you. I know we've been trying to trade you for the last year. Literally year, calendar year. What do you think about sacrificing, taking one for the team, seeing
Right.
how this goes? You've made the point, and I think correctly, you would risk losing D'Lo right off of the bat, and for Redick to essentially lose one of his most talented players because of a decision he's making right off of the bat would kind of sting. I do think with everything that is taken into account here, it's the right move. What do you think though about like the amount of confidence that Redick can have here to just be like, yeah,
So
here.
I know you and others don't like when I point this out, but I mean, like when you win 47 games, like again, it's not when you compare that to the West, you can put the context towards it. Obviously, the health of LeBron and AD, but I do think like as a new coach, when you're coming in, which is what JJ Redick. Well, I mean, I think he coached his sons. Like I believe he has. I think that's like the coaching experience that he's had. But like when you come into a team that's won 47 games, I still think, and the roster's the exact same, right? It's more tweaks than wholesale changes, right? The Sparks coach was just fired today, and the next coach coming in next year is going to have a lot of moving pieces because they went, I think, like 8-30 or whatever the record was. Like the JJ Redick's coming into a team that has won, consistently in the regular season. So I think it's more of a tweak. You don't want to come in and just be like, all right, D'Lo, you're on the bench, and especially with the guy he's replacing is like way under the talent pool. Whoever you pick to replace him, right? Max Christie, Gabe Vincent, whoever you want to put at that guard position for D'Lo would be at a way less talent perspective from him. So like how much confidence can JJ have, with this? Like I think this is the best starting 5. Like if the Lakers come out and this starting life fails miserably, we have an issue. Like because the adjustment to that is going to be tough. It's betting on a lot of other things. The other guy I would think would have a chance at this, Anthony, is Max Christie. Like I feel like in training camp he's going to be the dark horse starter or whatever, however these reports come out. And then obviously the rookies kind of get some hype with it, Dalton and those guys. But I think this is the correct starting 5. I think this is the one you have to start with and kind of build around, this unit, especially without Vanderbilt. Rui becomes exponentially more important now to what they do on both ends of the floor. And so that's why I think he should be confident with this lineup.
I'll also say this, some of the reporting that I did early in last season was how Darvin Ham lost the locker room, like basically right away by refusing to play that core 7 of the guys who got to the Western Conference Finals the year before. And I do think like this extends beyond D'Angelo Russell specifically, but I think all of those guys, like if you're the head coach and you step in and you basically, because this would apply to Vanderbilt too. If he decided to start Vando, this would work as well. But if he essentially like steps into that locker room and goes, all right, guys, the reason you hated my predecessor is because of this. Well, here's this carrot right off of the bat. Here's and we talked just yesterday about how the vibes, if it had they gone to a players only camp, right? The thing that they could rally around is, well, at least that guy isn't here anymore. Well, this kind of operates in that same way where like they can now approach training camp and be like, well, that guy is definitely gone. And this new guy definitely sees things in a way that much more closely aligns to how we see it. And I think that's like, when you're looking for, sources of optimism or reasons to be optimistic going into next season, I think that's a big one. I think, like really leaning heavily on the differences between JJ and Darvin, because that is the biggest difference this season. That is the biggest difference between the group of guys who were competing last year and the group of guys who will be competing this year.
And I think one of the reasons you go get a JJ Redick, a guy who is a younger coach, who is closer to age of your stars in AD and LeBron, I think it is because you get a collaborative effort, right? So I'm sure like this is something he's probably spoken with the guys. I don't think he'd publicly admit this, but I'm sure like if you ask them what's the starters that make sense, and JJ's tone in that short snippet that you played was very much like, yeah, obviously we're going with the lineup that played the best last year. Like there's no question. He wasn't like, oh, I really, studied the starters and, the bench units from last year and came out with the best lineup. He's like, no, I played the lineup that won the most. I'm playing the lineup that won the most. So at least he's starting from that perspective and will kind of tweak back from there, which I think is the correct perspective. Again, with a team that's won at the rate that they did, even though they finished in the play-in, but they're like 3-4 wins back from the teams above them. I think that's the right move with the team that's bringing back everyone. You don't want to go and just shuffle everything up. Imagine if like he was like, yeah, I'm starting Austin,
Christian
Dalton.
Coloco.
Yeah. Like, I'm putting D'Lo off the bench. I'm starting Dalton Connect. I've seen enough. Like you would lose D'Lo right away. I don't know if you'd lose the locker room because I don't know the relationship in the locker room, but like you'd lose D'Lo right away. Like I'm coming off the bench. Like you haven't even seen me play yet. You haven't even played a game yet. So I get going with this so far.
I do kind of wonder how short D'Lo's leash is, though. And I am really curious, like those reports and the things that I hear coming out of training camp about how good Christie looks and how good Connect looks, and some of these things. Like one version of a report that always makes me nervous is when like they say rookie X looks incredible, and I'm like, that says a lot about the player that the players that guy is competing against. Like remember last year, right? It was Jalen Hood-Schifino. It was like Jalen, like nobody score on Jalen, and I was like, oh no,
Jalen's getting wherever he wants on the floor. Well, I don't know. That's
it doesn't seem great. Like Austin, the guy that you're hoping steps into like an all-star caliber role, can't score on Jalen Hood-Schifino? Like what? So like hopefully we avoid that kind of a report this year. And like the report that I'm hoping for, and it's one that I'm pretty sure that we'll get. I know Harrison and I played training camp bingo already. Mm-hmm. But like now that this starting five is out there, and also by the way, incredibly media savvy move of JJ to say this on that show the day before he and Rob Pelinka do their dual presser tomorrow, in the hopes of maybe, just maybe, the first question will be about that starting lineup. Well, it'll be Mike asking the first question, so he'll probably ask a question about that starting lineup or whatever, just to like try to get everybody away from like pay no attention to the man behind the veil. I'm really that's going to be kind of funny and hilariously media savvy of JJ to do that. But the report that I'm looking for this year, this training camp, is that starting five is just nobody on our, like, no combination of players that we have available to us can stop them. Like that's the one. I know that like there will be caveats to throw on top of there, and some cold water to throw on those reports. But at least let me throw the cold water. Make me throw the cold water so that we can so that we can so we can see these guys or at least have a little bit of optimism in something that we've already something that we already have proof of concept for.
Right, for sure. You don't want to hear like the second, the B group is really pushing the starters, and they had to Dalton Connect, Max Christie really pushed the starters, and the starters were calling for a rematch, but JJ Redick ended practice. Like you don't want to hear that coming out.
No, I don't. I don't need to hear that.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, the news I want to hear is definitely like Jared Vanderbilt is walking, correctly and is moving right and is progressing correctly. That's like the main thing I want to hear tomorrow. And yeah, like I think you'll get the Max Christie. I think you'll get the Dalton Connect because they usually just hype the young guys. That's kind of what this media part is for. But yeah, that's one of the advantage when you're bringing everyone back. Hopefully, is they are starting from that was supposed to be what was this year was right. You're starting from a point that's ahead of other teams that have to kind of integrate other players. JJ can kind of go in and be like, okay, this is what worked when I was watching film. Now, like, let's adjust this here. We can run this more. Here's a place where you can kind of get better actions. I think that's a place where JJ can really come in. And because he has film on all of these guys, he can come in with a little bit more of a plan instead of having to kind of figure out how these lineups mesh. He has all of it on tape. So I'm hoping, and I think there's a lot of like information tomorrow about JJ. Like, okay, I've seen where Rui can be better. I can see where Austin can get better shots. Maybe get D'Lo coming off screens a little bit more and stuff like that to kind of improve his shot selection. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see it with him and Rob tomorrow. Speaking for the first time, I believe that this summer.
If we get those kinds of answers, those kinds of questions, I'm gonna be a little annoyed. I'm
Okay.
not gonna lie. And I guess this is a perfect way to segue over to this final topic here, Rob Pelinka's presser. Remember, you could see it there on the box or in that box there, Rob Pelinka presser. This is a time where Rob has to answer for his crimes. Like that is the story. That is all that I care about. That is all that anybody who cares about the Lakers should care about, because we'll have an entire training camp to hear from JJ about how, what tweaks they've made in the approach to Rui and what tweaks they have made to, try to get a little bit more out of Anthony Davis as a, kind of fulcrum of the offense. Like I'm good on those things and tomorrow's. And like, I think any question asked of that is just another opportunity to kind of put Rob's feet to the fire, kind of missed, because we won't hear from Rob until the Lakers go on like a 15-game winning streak. Like we won't. Like I'm just like that's how this plays out. Like
I hope to hear a lot from Rob then. I hope to hear a lot of Rob then. I really hope.
Because we won't hear from him unless things are going great. Then he's like available to everybody. Rob might come on this show if things are going great, but like, but otherwise, if they aren't, we just won't hear from him. We'll have to, like, poor JJ is going to keep on having to be the face of the franchise in that spot.
But don't you already, and so like, I know the way you frame this, like you want to hear Rob kind of say it, I guess, out loud, but don't you kind of know the answers that are coming tomorrow? Like you kind of know already, right? It's the same answers that were parroted at the trade deadline. It's going to be the same answers tomorrow. I understand, like, wanting, I guess, reporters to kind of push it a little bit. Like you said, push feet to the fire. But I'm expecting the same answers. We tried. It takes two to tango, it takes two to tango. It takes two to trade. We try to make deals, but nothing materialized. We're very much into internal development now. We drafted a kid that we think is very special, and Dalton Connect. He fell to us, and we were so blessed to have him fall to us at that number because we had him at a number that obviously is higher than the number we drafted him. Like, I just think these same answers are going to come. I'm not expecting some crazy, response tomorrow that gives us new information. I just don't think that's coming.
The point though is, the point is like making him say that again, right? Having him and having the organization see the response to those bullshit answers again, right? Because that's what it is. They aren't good faith answers. They aren't offering any actual transparency. I want him to say, like, read from some dumb book that he's maybe read the front and back covers on. Like I don't need, try to make another biblical reference, like do all of that stuff. Try to play whatever games that you want to try to play as you again try to convince yourself you're the smartest person in that room. When you're the only person in that room who hasn't done his job or didn't do his job to the level that is expected of him.
Do you think somebody will actually ask about the LeBron discount? You think that will come up? That's the most fascinating part of it to me, is like them making that real, I guess, because this is all been kind of hearsay through reporting, but hearing Rob actually actualize it, like I'd be interested in that part of, like, I guess, the conversation.
There are so many questions that, like, it's honestly going to be kind of interesting how long the presser goes for. And, I'm really kind of like this is one of those spots, and we actually saw this. Which presser was it? I think it was the Frank Vogel presser. Yeah.
Right.
The first introduction that we got to Frank Vogel, the beat reporters really went like directly at Rob Pelinka, and that's what they're going to do, because like the thing that like these beat reporters understand is that if they offer him softballs, like it's one thing for True to do it because he's like, state media, like he is supposed to kick off the presser with the kind of question that like is nice and easy to like breaks the ice in those things, right? And then you get fed to the wolves. But in some spots, if like things are going well and you ask a tough question, well then the fans are going to be like, what the fuck was that question? Where did that come from? But if things are going poorly and you're a beat reporter and you ask, and you're an independent beat reporter, meaning like not working for the team, and you ask a softball, fans, like the universe of that situation is fans are going to be like, what the hell was that question?
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what Rob Pelinka's wearing, what version of Kobe's Rob Pelinka's wearing there. Like those are the things that like, and tomorrow is going to be really interesting because I get the sense, I would imagine that beat reporters understand what their audience, what their readership, what their viewership or listenership wants out of that situation. I think every Laker fan who knows anything whatsoever about how this offseason went is demanding answers, even if they're bullshit. All right, Rob, try to sell me those same old stupid lies again or lines again. Like try to like see how that goes. See how that plays out with my audience. Hey, Lakers, tweet out the things that Rob just said there. See how those quotes go over in your mentions, because have you checked basically anything that the Lakers have tweeted or posted on any kind of social media now?
Yeah, no, for
under
sure.
Every single post, you'll see at least like 5 or more fans saying like, hey, why is Rob still working? Jeannie, sell the team. Like all of those things, they are still there. It's a fan base that's wondering, hey, you have like, I just got, it's like I think it's a parody account, so I'm not going to take it too seriously. But this account was like, I was saying how I think this season's going to suck, and I still feel that way. And this account was like, oh come on, the Lakers have like a 70% chance at making the playoffs outright, and a 90% chance at making the play-in. You have LeBron. LeBron is still playing like a top 10 to 15 like player in the league. You have Anthony Davis, who's playing last year like a 5 to 10 player, maybe even higher. Like you have 2 top 15 players on average. On average, the median there is like top 10 players. Like your baseline shouldn't be well. It's a good thing we have a good chance at making the playoffs. What? Hold on.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's funny you mentioned the Vogel presser, and if my memory serves me correctly, it was like 8 straight questions to Rob, and then it was like, so Vogel, what do you think about coaching Lonzo Ball? And it's like Vogel's like, how am I supposed to answer these while you're just throwing flamethrowers at the guy right next to me?
That whole thing, it was funny because they sit on those like bar stools, right? Mm-hmm. They sit on basically like bar stools. They're holding their mic or whatever, or they have like a mic that they pass back and forth for some reason. Like, guys.
Let's get one more. Yeah.
Lakers. You can spend on one extra mic. But so like it was funny to watch because even though they're sitting on those bar stools, Frank was like steadily just kind of like sinking lower and lower and lower into like, and then finally when he was like asked the question, he was like, okay, what? Excuse me? Yeah. It was I'm really excited about this opportunity. Like really, right. Especially after this press conference.
Right. They're like, "Oh, Rob, this was like your third choice." Like, "Oh, yeah, well, we're gonna forget all about that now."
He's like, actually, I was his fourth. You just
No, but like I think Rob has these answers like memorized, and like I know you're hoping for like a full on, fire tired presser. I don't see that coming, at least tomorrow. I just think the answers are gonna be the same. Again, I just kind of scripted what they are, and I'm not sure if Rob's gonna say this part, but like, I collaborated with LeBron, and LeBron, we had to wait for LeBron to make his decision, right? It is a player option, and then we were able to, no, actually he's gonna say, excuse me, say our priority this season was re-signing LeBron, right? And we got that done. Like that's gonna be the first thing that comes out, right? And the rest is he's gonna go up with Dalton Connect and Max Christie, a guy we really believe that we could should have been playing more last year. And like I think that's the stuff you're going to hear. And yes, it's gonna piss off fans that I haven't even started my Lakers play today stuff. But I started like saying like we're 13 days away, and I can already tell like nobody wants anything to do with this team at all, which I understand it, but I think that's what you're gonna hear. And like I'm not expecting this full on burn the house down type of stuff, like type of questions. At least I think it's gonna be more tailored toward JJ, because JJ's the new face in the room, right? Literally, like him and Dalton Connect are the new faces in the room. Everything else has stayed the same. It's him, and I don't expect Dalton to get that many questions, but I think it's gonna be, the focus is gonna be on JJ tomorrow.
No, I don't see
You don't think so?
It can't.
Okay.
It can't be. No.
Okay.
It can't. I mean, like, you will get some JJ questions because, like you said, like reporters kind of like they're human beings too, and they're gonna be like, "Hey, JJ's
Right.
sitting up there too. Maybe we should
When you're
ask
in that
a question
room.
of JJ." Like,
Mhm.
So JJ, nice weather. Like, how you holding up? Any new grays? Like, how you doing? All right, back to Rob. Hey, so it's just I think that's how this is going to play out, and like that's how it should play out. Again, we haven't heard. Remember the last time that we heard from Rob Pelinka, he was asked about the offseason or about the process that led to hiring JJ Redick, and he dodged the question and then said, "This is a day where we're celebrating the hiring of our new head coach. I'll be happy to answer all of those questions at another time." That other time didn't come. This is that other time. And yeah, you're right, Raj. Like, this is like watching a debate, right? It's like watching a political debate. Both parties are going to lie to various extents. That you're going to be annoyed with what the other party says. That you're going to what you're walking into when you watch that kind of a thing. Hell, people who watch this show, what you're walking into when you click go live watching this show. You're going to watch me whine about the Lakers for 45 minutes or so, and then I'm going to hop off here and I'll say, have a great rest of your day, make somebody else's, and I'll talk to you fuckers tomorrow. This is what we're getting tomorrow. We know what we're walking into. We know that Rob is going to try to, sidestep the stuff. But what's funny though, Raj, and I'm not going to obviously I'm not going to air out any of the private conversations that I've had with anybody in particular. But the more that I talk to people who either cover the Lakers, who work for the Lakers, who, these just like Lakers circles, right? And whatever. There was a time when Rob would say those things, and it was like, oh man, you know what? It's calming, it's inspiring. He's charismatic. He's a good-looking guy, right? He's all of those things. And then it became like, well, it's funny jokes. It's like, we can kind of laugh at it, whatever. And then now when he says those things, like the number of people that I have conversations with who just kind of roll their eyes at the nonsense that he spews has like significantly gone up. Like, the number of people are just like, another pained analogy that he's going to try to get us to buy into, and another set of excuses for how difficult his job is and all that stuff. Like I'm sorry, man, the guy who has his job because of his proximity to mama mentality, if he has to stand up there and make excuse after excuse after excuse for how difficult or try to explain to us how difficult his job is, then you're failing at the number one reason that you have that job, right? just imagine how Kobe would take some of these lines. He wouldn't.
Sure. Yeah, you're gonna hear about Apron World, right, and all that stuff. Apron Universe, or however Rob calls it. You're gonna hear about all that stuff tomorrow. I think that's fair. I think there's a lot of questions that need to be aired out. Again, like I spoke about the LeBron one. I hope someone brings up the report about, hey, you had 3 first-round picks to move this summer and you moved none of them. What was the reasoning for that? And like those are the kind of tougher questions that I want answers for. But again, again, I'm going to put my fan hat on again. Like when I look at this, I just don't think Rob's going anywhere, at least for this year. Maybe these are questions that should go to Jeannie. I know Jeannie's done some radio shows.
What's funny is he's entering a contract year. So like,
okay, yeah, and that should be a conversation that those are questions should be asked to Jeannie, right? And she's done some shows. I don't think she's gotten any questions like that in terms of Rob's job security.
She's
on
not
the
going
shows.
to do anything that isn't like friendly.
Sure. But I'm just saying those are the questions that should be like put to her, I guess, because I think Rob's going to give me the same answers, and I'm expecting those same answers tomorrow. And as a fan, I just don't see any change coming from him because I heard this same answer 5 months ago, 6 months ago at the trade deadline. The can just keeps getting kicked down the road. The D'Angelo Russell can keeps getting kicked down the road. The moving multiple first round picks can keeps getting kicked down the road. Like these cans just keep getting kicked down the road. And now like, I'm like, okay, the can's far enough where I'm just not gonna look at the can anymore. Like I'm look at where we're at, currently and kind of analyze that. But yeah, I hope you're right. Like I hope we get some answers tomorrow. I'm just not expecting anything different than I've heard the last few months, which is upsetting as well. But I just don't find it as interesting, I guess, because I'm going to hear the same stuff again tomorrow from Rob. I just like
I would love to know the origins of kicking the can down the road. Because what would you be doing with the can otherwise?
Are you gonna go pick up the can after kicking it? Yeah, it's a good question. I have no idea. The can's probably finished. You're not kicking a can that's
right.
full.
Are you waiting and like what's the point? Like what why are we kicking a can?
Yeah.
Why can't we just pick up the can? All right, let's we do have a couple of super comments here. Justin Tyndall starts us off with one. Justin, if you're still here listening, if you could send in the comment or a version of the comment that you left the last time that Philip and I were doing the show, I think you did 1 or 2 that day. I'll answer those here too while you're here. But you do have one super comment here, which means we get to play this bad boy. Justin Tyndall writes, let's hope D'Lo is mature this year, knowing he's a trade chip. Wouldn't surprise me if he's on the team the whole year because Rob won't like the bag of chips and soda he gets offered for him. We said that exact thing last year. I hope he handles being on the trade block well.
Right. Yeah.
I hope he's okay with it. Like I hope that he's able to set aside all of that noise and just play basketball and all of that stuff. Raj, is there any reason to think that this is going any differently?
D'Angelo, I just Googled it while you were reading the question, but D'Angelo Russell is 28 years old. Like, he's been in the league.
Googling the origins of kicking the can. All right,
oh, no. Okay. Yeah. But D'Angelo Russell is 28 years old. I believe he's going into year 9 of his NBA career. I think who D'Lo is who he is. He also has made the max amount of money. He looks very comfortable in his own skin. I just don't think anything's going any differently. I think D'Angelo Russell understands his trade position. He's a very smart and intelligent guy, understands the cap situation as well. I don't think this is going any different unless the Lakers start winning. And I think that was the hope last year as well. And Anthony reported that they were very quickly to kind of try and move D'Angelo Russell. But I think last year, there was a world where if he played well and the team was winning, they were a high seed, he stayed on the team. But I'm with you because I think a bag of chips and soda is what's coming at the deadline as well. Not actually, but proverbially. I think that's the offers you're gonna get when a guy has half a season left. Like you're not getting great offers for a guy at that time. So no, I don't think anything is changing this year.
Yeah, I would imagine over the course of training camp and on into the season, and then all the way up until the deadline, the Lakers are going to be making plenty of calls, trying to see what they can get for D'Lo and. I guess the only notable and important difference here is that he's a actual expiring contract this year. He
Sure.
doesn't have that player option, as he did last year. And I think that was a big reason why he didn't move last season.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's why things might play out a little bit differently. All right. So I Googled kicking the can.
Okay.
Quote, many Americans of a certain age grew up playing yard games that required no equipment at all. For the game of kick the can, all you needed was an old can for one player to be it and a bunch of other players to hide. Its job was to guard the can while trying to find the others. Anyone who was found would be escorted to a holding area, but if a hider could kick the can before getting tagged by it, everyone went free. The game may have changed in its heyday in the Great Depression. By the early 1960s, it had all been bit down. I played kick the can when I was growing up. I didn't grow up in the 60s. Good Lord. Then around the mid 1980s, a new phrase began to be heard in the U.S. Congress. To kick the can down the road became, in the rhetoric of some lawmakers, a colorful and mildly critical new way of referring to putting off work on an issue for a later date. But that still doesn't make all right, whatever.
Doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I don't see the correlation between that game and putting something off for some length of time.
Like are you like hoping that like somebody else kicks the can instead of you while you're playing that game, maybe? But then it's not going down the road. Like you're not kicking the can. None of it makes any sense.
No, yeah. It came from
All
politics
right.
though. That's strange. Didn't know that. Came from lawmakers? Okay.
Yeah. It would make sense. It makes sense from the perspective of like they're going to look for any reason to not do their jobs. All right, Brandon Omeng writes, D'Lo to the bench. I know AR wouldn't mind coming off of the bench, but JJ and the Lakers are invested in him, so there's no point in starting D'Lo, who they'll move by the deadline. I mean, like that's been my perspective this whole time, this whole offseason, in that like the problem that the Lakers keep having in their efforts to trade D'Lo is how much they need him, and how little other teams need him by comparison. And if essentially you make his role small enough, it won't hurt as much in terms of on-court creativity on that day that you finally move him. But clearly the Lakers feel differently.
I don't think that I don't think the Lakers have enough talent to do that in the regular season. I also think not from his creation ability, but I think the Lakers need his 3-point volume, right? D'Lo takes 9 threes a game and hits them at a pretty efficient rate. And if
have you seen his numbers from last year? Like just raw shooting numbers.
He was really good last year.
7.5 attempts per game, almost 8 attempts per game, and he shot 41% from 3-point range.
He was important
Incredible.
to winning a ton of regular season games. He was super vital. That's why I think they need his volume. The only guy that takes his volume is LeBron, and LeBron's threes come from teams going under ball screens. Austin's, you've reported, and I think others, that he's going to they want him to increase his 3-point attempts, and Rui's not really that type of volume 3-point shooter either. That's where D'Lo comes in. And I think he's important by there. I don't think you can bench him. There's just no one that replaces that offensive production, even as up and down as he is.
Yep. All right. I think that is going to just about do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge. And tomorrow's show, I will be recapping Rob Pelinka's presser and that JJ presser. I'll probably go live basically right after it in the afternoon so that my thoughts are fresh on it and stuff. Maybe grab a couple clips of the presser to be able to play for you guys on that show. Thursday, like I said previously, we have Lee coming on the show to talk about Basketball Passport and how excited we are about that. And then actually wound up rescheduling with Jovan, so he will be on the show next week. Probably no show on Friday. But look, if we get breaking news or something like that, maybe I will be right here in the lounge to talk about that. So until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin saying, and that was Raj Chapalu saying, have a great rest of your evening, make somebody else's, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Probably pretty angry at the nonsense that we heard from Rob Pelinka.
I'm starting the team that went